Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Rollin.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? Folks, today is Friday, November 1st, 2024, coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. I'm here in Mobile, Alabama, where they're having the second annual Port City Classic. I just finished moderating a couple of panels, and so coming up next, we'll be chatting with Shomari Figures, who is running for Congress in a new opportunity district created here in Alabama. We'll hear from him. Also on today's show, we'll talk about the election 4 days away. Both candidates are traversing the country, getting the vote out. Vice President Kamala Harris will be live in Milwaukee for a massive concert featuring Glorilla, the Isley Brothers, Cardi B, and others as well. Of course, we'll be traveling to Michigan this weekend, broadcasting the show. The Harris campaign dropped several new ads targeting the Trump campaign, and so we'll be talking about that. Lots to break down, folks. It is time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered. On the Black Star Network, let's go.
Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Rollin now. He's funky, he's fresh, he's real, the best. You know he's Roland Martin now. Martin. Martin. Martin.
Hey folks, Roland Martin here. We are in Mobile, Alabama. Been traveling the country, of course, as we are 4 days away from the election. And so much attention is focused on the national election, of course. Vice President Kamala Harris against Donald Trump to be the 47th President of the United States here in Alabama. There's a critical race taking place in the Opportunity District here. And the person joining me, Shomari Figures, is running in that particular race. And so, Shomari, glad to see you again. So let's talk about how's this race been going so far?
Good to be here, man. It's been going well. It's been going well. The reception on the ground has been well. The ability to raise money has been well. The National Party is really leaning in here because they understand the opportunity that we have here. We just had Leader Jeffries, soon to be hopefully Speaker of the House. Hakeem Jeffries was campaigning with us yesterday in Montgomery. Jasmine Crockett was down here earlier this week. Eric Holder was here stumping with us. So people understand the importance of it, and we feel good about where we are in terms of how we're positioned to finish and leave it all out on the field, man.
Let's talk about this Opportunity District. For people who don't know, I mean, it was created because of lawsuits of civil rights organizations battling this state, Republican in the legislature. There was 7 congressional districts, 6 Republican, 1 Democrat, 27% black in this state, and black folks were not getting proper representation.
That's right. I mean, almost a third of the state's population is black, and we only had 1 district where a black candidate could legitimately be elected. And so there was a lawsuit that was brought after the last census. They packed even more black people into that 1 district, which is currently represented by Congresswoman Terry Sewell, so as to limit the impact that black voters in the state could have across multiple congressional districts. So a lawsuit was filed, and even this current iteration of the Supreme Court found, at least preliminarily, because the case is still going on, that there was a likely violation of the Voting Rights Act. And so they asked the state of Alabama to redraw its districts. To no one's surprise, the state of Alabama refused to comply. So the federal courts redrew the district, and now we have a true opportunity district. It's not a guarantee. It's not a slam dunk. It's a district now that's about 48% black, 46% white. It's a district that Joe Biden would have carried in 2020, but it's also a district that our current Republican governor would have carried in 2022. So we still got to get out here and do the work.
And look, there were 2 states that were going through this battle, Alabama and Louisiana, and you had an obstinate Republican legislature that, frankly, was ignoring the will of the courts, and I mean was very reminiscent of Jim Crow days in terms of defying federal courts.
Yeah, I mean, it was shocking, and I think at the end of the day, I mean, I think one of the more important outcomes of this litigation to this point is not so much the district, although that is very important, but the federal courts, making sure that a state was not allowed to just essentially, put up his middle finger to the Supreme Court of the United States and other federal judges and say we're going to do what we want to do, at the disadvantage to minorities in this country. And so it was a great decision. Like I said, it's still preliminary at this point, but it was a great decision, I think, in terms of preserving not only the Voting Rights Act, but preserving the authority of the court to actually be the determining voice in terms of when people's rights are being violated. And so, our hope is that we get out and vote, and we take advantage of this opportunity and then move this momentum on to state elections so we can have a more of a voice when it comes time to redraw district lines in a few years. We were talking earlier, and one of the huge issues that the district faces deals with health care. And this is the case in a lot of places where it's rural. We've seen this in North Carolina, in Georgia, in Tennessee. I mean, this state got a lot of money from the federal government through COVID, and the governor chose to use that money not on health care, but chose to use it on prisons. Yeah, and I mean, look, health care issues here in the state of Alabama, similar to some other, southern states primarily, like it's beyond just health insurance that we're talking about. We're talking literal health care access. Since we've been in this race, we've had 4 hospitals closed across this district. We have several others that are hemorrhaging and having to, rob Peter to pay Paul every single quarter to pull money from non-traditional sources, i.e. the city council or county commission, to keep their hospitals open. The largest hospital in Montgomery, Alabama is on the verge of collapse. And so we have an obligation to make sure that we're doing that, because it's more than just a healthcare issue. It's an economic issue. Like, when you don't have hospitals, you can't recruit businesses. You can't recruit families to want to live there and set up shop there. And you can't recruit retirees that want to live out their lives in those communities. And so we have an obligation to make sure that we're standing up for our healthcare systems.
And what is the response of lawmakers in this state? I mean, look, if you don't have hospitals, again, folks have to travel a lot further to get care, and that means that the likelihood of folks dying is real.
Yeah, unfortunately, the response of state lawmakers has not been one that reflects a genuine care or passion about the lives of people throughout this state. Because, like, in a few respects, most notably, Alabama. Look, here in Alabama, we have the third lowest life expectancy in the United States, behind Mississippi and West Virginia, who only have us beat by like a few weeks, right, or months at best. So statistically speaking, we live the shortest lives in America right here in the state of Alabama. We need healthcare access the most, yet our state has refused for the past nearly 15 years to expand Medicaid under the Affordable Care Act. So that's something that we have to do, and in Congress, that's something that I'm going to prioritize, making sure we can again incentivize, offer the federal reimbursement incentive to the state of Alabama to go ahead and do what's right and expand Medicaid. But our state legislature has to get its act together, and in the event that they don't, then we're going to have to look at ways to drive resources directly to some of these counties to, at a minimum, try to provide some of the preventative healthcare services.
Beyond healthcare, what also are the other top priorities for the district?
Economic development is huge, especially in the rural communities, but also here in Mobile and in Montgomery as well. People want to know that they're going to be good paying jobs with good benefits available across this district. And so, to that end, we have several infrastructure projects that are going on right here in Mobile. Just outside this door, there's going to be a huge new bridge that's going to be built. There was a down payment on that by the federal government in the form of a federal grant that Mobile just received a couple months ago, and it was the largest federal grant that the state of Alabama has ever received. And so driving that's going to create jobs, it's going to create opportunities, but we have to make sure that we can continue to bring those sorts of opportunities here and make sure that that money that's being spent is being used to create those opportunities, and also inclusive and mindful that minority-owned businesses need to be there and able to take advantage of this major construction project coming this way. And economic development across this district as a whole. I mean, look, that unless a company is relocating to your area because of a natural resource in your backyard, then the most important thing that they need, the most important asset, is a highly trained workforce. And we have a long way to go here in the state of Alabama to make sure that we're developing the type of workforces across a variety of communities to sustain our ability to be able to recruit or create the ability to be able to recruit those companies. Right now, our children here in the state of Alabama read at the 6th worst literacy rate in the United States of America. And so we have to improve on that. We have to make those investments in education and public education, primarily because it is our largest workforce development program that we have, whether people like it or not.
We talk about the area that you represent. You mentioned earlier counties not having hospitals. You said where Tuskegee University is.
Yeah.
No hospital there. When you talk about the Black Belt in this state, again, crucial role in the history of voting rights and civil rights, but in many ways it's been forgotten.
Yeah, it has. And something that I've said since I got in this race is that America owes this district in a unique way. It owes Montgomery specifically, and Tuskegee specifically, given the sacrifices that those cities, those institutions located there have made, the role that they played in making America be true to, as Dr. King said, what it said on paper. They played a unique role in that, a significant role in the civil rights movement. It was born out of this district. Tuskegee Airmen are out of this district. Rosa Parks, John Lewis's hometown, is out of this district. So this is a very historical district, a very historical place, and one that has not, unfortunately, been the focal point of a lot of representation. The district is currently, most of this district did not come from Terry Sewell's district. Most of this newly drawn district came out of a Republican district that is currently represented by one of the most fiscally conservative people, Republican or Democrat, in the House. And so they truly have not had the benefit of somebody that's focused on trying to drive resources and investments from the federal government into their communities. And so we got an opportunity to change that, and I'm looking forward to being able to do just that.
All right. Well, certainly good luck. 4 days left.
Thank you, man.
You don't have early voting in this state, so it's all about getting the turnout on Election Day on Tuesday.
Yeah, absolutely, man. We've seen an uptick in absentee ballots, which is good. We're seeing a lot of people say that they're voting absentee. That's the only form of early vote that we do have here in the state, and it's still technically not early vote because you have to have an excuse to do it here. But nevertheless, people are used to having to get up and get out on election day, so we're looking forward to it, man.
All right, we appreciate it. Thanks a bunch.
Thank you, man.
All right, folks, got to go to a break. We'll be right back on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network, live here in Mobile, Alabama. Back in a moment.
Nearly 250 years ago, America was born when we wrested freedom from a petty tyrant. Across the generations, Americans have preserved that freedom, expanded it, and in so doing, proved to the world that a government of, by, and for the people is strong and can endure. And those who came before us, they did not struggle, sacrifice, and lay down their lives only to see us cede our fundamental freedoms to the will of another petty tyrant. So America, in 7 days, we have the power to turn the page and start writing the next chapter in the most extraordinary story ever told.
Bob and I both voted for Donald Trump.
I voted for him twice. I won't vote for him again. January 6th was a wake-up call for me.
Donald Trump divides people. We've already seen what he has to bring.
He didn't do anything to help us. Kamala Harris, she cares about the American people. I think she's got the wherewithal to make a difference. I've never voted for a Democrat.
Yes, we're both lifelong Republicans.
The choice is very simple.
I'm voting for Kamala.
I am voting for Kamala Harris.
IVF is a miracle for us because it allowed us to have our family. After having my daughter, I wanted more children, but my embryo transfer was canceled 8 days before the procedure. Donald Trump overturning Roe v. Wade stopped us from growing the family that we wanted. I don't want politicians telling me how or when I can have a baby. We need a president that will protect our rights, and that's Kamala Harris.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
Hello, I'm Jamia Pugh. I am from Coatesville, Pennsylvania, just an hour right outside of Philadelphia.
My name is Jasmine Pugh. I'm also from Coatesville, Pennsylvania.
You are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. Stay right here.
All right, folks, economic numbers are in, and Republicans are rejoicing because only 12,000 jobs were added in the economy last month. That is the lowest number in nearly 4 years. Now, the unemployment rate held steady at 4.1%, the same as September. The overall black unemployment rate remained unchanged at 5.7%. The unemployment rate for black men increased from 5.1% to 5.7%. For black women, the unemployment rate dropped to 4.9%. Morgan Harper, an economist with the American Economic Liberties Project, joins us right now. And Morgan, when we look at the hurricanes and the strikes, that could very well be the reason we see these numbers. But it's really interesting, boy. Republicans, they've been waiting for this moment. Oh, the economy sucks. The economy is terrible. It's a lie.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the Boeing strike that implicates a couple tens of thousands of workers is directly related to the decrease in manufacturing jobs. And then also, just like you said, Roland, with the hurricanes that occurred, and those all came about right when employers would have been reporting on their payrolls and the data that feeds into the jobs report. So it was always expected that this jobs report was going to be low. It does seem like the level of impact that the natural disasters had on the reported data is more than expected. But yeah, how do we know that the economy continues to be very strong? Well, how did the markets react to this data? Kind of not at all. The stock market continued to open and close at a very high rate. And even the Wall Street Journal, which usually is on the side of finding any reason to critique anything coming out of this administration, pretty much said that this jobs data is kind of a anomaly and needs to be taken in its full context.
You know, I was Dave Ramsey, of course, the personal finance guru, if you will. He's a Donald Trump supporter. He sent out this tweet, and I couldn't help but to slam him because I thought it was stupid and idiotic. Again, he was crowing about the jobs report. Let me see. Let me show you what he said. He goes, "Wow, the economy is really struggling. Worst job numbers this month in years. Vote." And I'm going, okay, yeah, you're full of crap. And then Hugh Hewitt, who is the conservative radio talk show host, he tried the exact same thing, tried to jump on these numbers. And oh my goodness, just how bad we are. Let me find this tweet, because I just had to sit here and say, he goes, "The closing argument for former President Trump, today's jobs report, illustration from the Washington Post." Again, it's just silly. Steve Cortez, you know, we're supporting Trump. Breaking, just 12,000 new jobs were added this month. Economists expected 112,000 new jobs. This is what they do. They want to totally ignore what has taken place over the last 4 years, as if somehow the economy has been bad.
Yeah, and it's really unfortunate. And of course, this is why people get confused. And so we really do have to set the record straight. Is it the case that 12,000 jobs were created over the last month? That's what the data is saying. But as we know, and we talk about regularly on this, one, every month's data needs to be taken with a grain of salt because adjustments are always made. And here, this past month, we have very clear reasons why it would be disproportionately lower, like we just discussed, because of the strikes and the natural disasters. The reality is, over 2 million jobs have been created throughout the entire year, and that year time frame is enough time to actually assess in a more accurate way what's the strength of the economy. What else is going on? You know, you pointed to the data that the unemployment rate continues to be at historic lows across all demographics, which is good. We are seeing a little bit of wage growth, or it's slowed down from what it was, but that's actually in some ways, you know, that's what feeds into whether or not the inflation rate is going to continue to increase in some ways. And so that's not entirely bad. It's still increasing, but just not as quickly as it was. And all of this taken together, like I said, the markets are suggesting that the economy is still in a very similar place that it was yesterday. So this data probably, you know, wasn't that impactful again, because people who follow these things kind of know that this was an anomaly. And, you know, looking ahead, we are likely to see another interest rate cut, not as much as we saw, you know, a month or so ago. And that's a good thing. If you own a small business, for example, if you need to borrow money, that likely can be beneficial to you to have the interest rates go down. Or if you already do owe money to someone and you don't want to have to pay as much, this is a good thing as well. And the federal government's going to continue to try to find the equilibrium to make sure that, yes, we're seeing wage growth, we're seeing employment increase, but it's not fueling the higher prices that we were seeing, you know, higher rates of inflation a few years ago. The inflation rate is back to where it's supposed to be normally, about 2%, a little bit over. And so we really need to make sure that people have accurate information here. And that 12,000 number is just, it's not an accurate portrait of what's been happening. And we have to make sure we correct that record.
So again, I just want people to understand what you're saying is where the inflation rate is right now is where our inflation rate normally is. And so if people keep yelling, oh, it's high inflation, that's no longer the case.
The rate of inflation is back to where it normally is, a little over 2%. Now, I do not want to underestimate or minimize at all the price increases that all of us have experienced over the past few years. Prices are higher than what they were a few years ago. But, you know, it's important to keep in mind some of those prices were starting to increase in 2020, okay, before this current administration was elected. It's just, you know, again, these are just the facts. And a lot of the price increases came from the pandemic.
And Morgan, price increases are determined by companies, not the government. The White House, the House, the Senate has no control over price increases. Those are companies making that decision to jack up prices.
Yes, we definitely now have data that shows that there was price gouging that's been going on. I mean, at least over the past few years when we've had more enforcers and folks within this administration that have been tracking it. And what's another piece of evidence there? I mean, you know, Kroger-Albertson, that's a deal, that's a transaction that we've talked about before during the trial to determine whether or not that merger is going to be allowed. And around the time that the trial was happening, they had executives from the company saying, let us merge and we're going to lower all of our prices. We're going to save consumers $1 billion. It's like, oh, well, if you could be doing that at any time, why don't you just do that, right? Because you know that people are already struggling. So yes, corporations have discretion over how much they want prices to be, especially corporations that are dominating the market and don't have to deal with any competition. And that's what, unfortunately, we see across a lot of different market areas in the economy. Why is Visa, for example, able to charge high fees that then end up hitting small business owners when they want to process any of the transactions we do? Why? Because they can, because they're not facing any competition. So, you know, that's an ongoing issue that we're going to have to address as a country. We've seen some progress in this administration to try to tackle some of that price gouging. We've seen also, you know, from Vice President Harris in her economic plan that one of her goals is to take on price gouging specifically in the grocery market. And that is going to take some time to really rein in. But rest assured, there are laws existing on the books that ban that type of behavior. And we need to make sure that we have enforcers in place that are going to use those laws to their maximum impact, and legislators in Congress, like you were just talking, your prior, you know, guest who looks like maybe he's going to get there, to be one of those that's going to be pushing for legislation that will ban these types of practices from corporations that drive up prices ultimately that we end up paying.
Questions from my panel. Let's go first to Derek Jackson, who's a Georgia State representative. Derek, what's your question for Morgan?
And if she could really share the difference between inflation and corporate greed, because a lot of what Kamala Harris policies are, as you've already articulated, that's one part. And then the second part, why there's no breakthrough for her. I mean, you know, I don't drive everything around polls, but it still says that Trump is leading when it comes to the economy, when the world economists are backing her plan, the GDP growth of 2.8%, the job creation that you already mentioned. Why there's no breakthrough? Why it's not resonating when it comes to that she's better of the two to handle the economy?
Yeah, well, you know, your first question, the difference between inflation, corporate greed, I think, you know, the main point that we're getting at is prices have increased. And some of the price increases can be attributed to different factors. So, for example, like when we had the disruption with supply chains during the pandemic, that just made it harder for companies to get goods. And then also we saw that then that forced them to raise prices because they were paying more for their supplies to be able to provide whatever their goods and services were. So that's something that could drive up prices. But then you have other factors that drive up prices. If there's also similarly a labor shortage and employers have to increase the prices that they're charging us because they're also paying their workers more, then that's something that can contribute to inflation. That's why I was saying, sometimes a lot of the federal monetary policymakers will be looking at just how quickly wages are increasing to get a sense of how that might be impacting the inflation rate. But then, what Roland and I are discussing is there is now data showing that, okay, those are all, it's kind of exogenous factors that are kind of hard to control. You don't know when there's going to be a pandemic that happens every 100 years that it just appears and you have to respond to that. That's one thing. But what we have data showing is that beyond the rate of inflation and how much it was increasing, we saw corporations during the pandemic and beyond continue to keep their prices higher than the rate of inflation, suggesting that they were really just taking advantage of the situation to try to make more money off of us. That's when it's getting into the gouging territory beyond just a corporation or a business that's having to manage increased costs on their end and pass those along to the consumer to just break even. They're not breaking even. In a lot of cases, they're making record profit. And the point I was adding on as well is when you're in a market that doesn't have a lot of competition, competition helps to just reinforce that prices are going to stay at more of an equilibrium place because you have multiple options. We have multiple options as a consumer of where we want to shop. But if there's only one game in town, well, then the business that owns that game, they're going to be able to make their prices as high as they can and know that we just have to kind of take it as consumers. And so that creates the perfect conditions to then gouge us as consumers and make even more money. In terms of why this isn't breaking through, it's a question that I'm sure a lot of folks, both within the administration, perhaps on the campaign, are asking themselves. I'm not involved in either of those things, but I think we have to be realistic too. Taking first the campaign, it's only been a couple of months that Vice President Harris herself has been the spokesperson for these issues. It's hard really under any length of time in this kind of environment to get clear messages across to people. I would say, there's just such dispersed messaging. And like we were talking about, you have a lot of people that are not honest brokers here. Like we had our discussion about the 12,000 job report data. That's not a complicated thing to understand why that's an anomaly, but we have people that intentionally try to mislead the public, and that's not helping anybody get a better sense of what's really going on here. And then the other thing is, a lot of these policies are actually popular. So when you say, they're not breaking through, I think we have some of the coverage that the media shows, and some of these articles will say, well, people aren't associating some of these policies and the positive economy with President Biden or Vice President Harris. But when you ask people just without the political layer, how are they feeling about their economic situation? A lot of those responses are coming back and being sort of positive. Now, we do have data in the polling that's showing that people can continue to be very concerned about high prices, the cost of living. But I think that's also something we have to continue to break down a little bit more. For example, I'll speak for myself and I, curious of the panel's thoughts too. But one of the primary drivers of uncertainty or stress about your economic situation is the unknown as well. Healthcare costs, for example. If we get sick, if you have a family member that's sick, you don't know how much that could add up to. Even if you have insurance, your premiums are going up. And so, it's not so easy always to tell what exactly might be driving someone's concern when they say they are concerned about the economy. But we do also have to distinguish the political from the substance in trying to understand where people are coming from.
Michael Imhotep, host African History Network show.
Hey, Morgan, thanks for coming back on. Could you put a couple things in perspective? Number one, when we look at the October jobs report, New York Times was reporting that because of Hurricane Helene and Milton, there were 460,000 people basically filing for unemployment, not showing up to work. So that impacts the job numbers. But also, we see that in the healthcare industry, 52,000 jobs were added for the month of October, as well as government jobs, 40,000 were added. So I also find something interesting. You had Republicans spreading conspiracy theories that only $750 in FEMA aid was available for hurricane victims, right? But at the same time, they're also distorting what really impacted these numbers. Can you put that in perspective for us, please?
In terms of why they might be doing that, or what's actually?
Well, no. The 460,000 not showing up to work, being impacted. How does that impact these numbers? One, and then also talk about the fact that I bet you Republicans are not talking about the 52,000 healthcare jobs created in October, as well as the 40,000 jobs created by the government. So they'll just focus on 12,000. Only those that say net 12,000 jobs created, but not deal with these other factors.
Yeah, I mean, if people aren't showing up to work, well, then there's not payrolls to report to the government. And so I do think there's a combination of, people's jobs were disrupted by the hurricanes that were happening. And so fewer people then maybe were able to make it to their job. But then also these numbers rely on companies reporting their data. If these companies were also managing the impacts of the natural disasters, well, then they were not in a position to deliver that information in a timely way that would feed into the October numbers. So I think, all of that has to be considered. It's interesting you bring up just where there was the job growth, because I have heard some criticism actually just this morning from a Republican commentator who was saying, oh, look, the economy, we're only seeing increases in government jobs. This is just, this is what this administration wants. It's just everybody in a government job and only 12,000 jobs. And again, I mean, it's a very similar point to the only focusing on the 12,000 jobs created number out of the full context. Well, yes, those are maybe, looking at the government jobs that maybe a lot of that is remote. Maybe that wasn't as impacted by some of the natural disasters that had happened. You have to kind of take it down to a layer. But this would require actually wanting to explain things to ensure that people are understanding what's going on. It does seem, unfortunately, in this moment, especially just a few days away from very consequential election, as we know, that the goal for some folks seems instead to distort rather than explain for understanding. And that's why it's so important that we're making sure everybody has full, accurate information as they're having conversations with people in their lives, right before Tuesday and making their decisions about who's going to best manage the economy moving forward.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Matt Manning.
Well, let me first say, Morgan, thank you for talking about insurance premiums, because I get mad at State Farm on a daily basis. But in any event, my question to you is a pretty simple one, and I think you've kind of already discussed it. There's a lot of rhetoric, a lot of numbers around all of this, and it can be a little difficult to follow. If you had to pinpoint 2 or 3 metrics for anyone who's trying to get just an objective view of how good the economy is doing now as compared to under Mr. Trump, what would those metrics be, and what necessary context needs to be around those metrics to really evaluate where the economy is now and the health of the economy?
That's a great question. And, I don't at all want to evade in answering the question, but I do think it hits on a fundamental point is a lot of this is really subjective. And so, I think for each of us, our life circumstances are different. The amount of responsibility we have, what the nature of that responsibility is in our lives economically, and how we're wading through that is important. So here's what I would say, common factors that people would encourage us, the experts would encourage us to look to, some of which I've pointed to already today. The unemployment rate. I mean, that's just a sign that overall, are people working? People who want to be working, are they able to find jobs? That's important. The GDP rate of growth, which was, another panelist already mentioned, is the economy getting bigger? Are we seeing, sufficient economic activity as a country that then creates the opportunity for people who want to be working to make money and those who run a business and want to start a business to be able to sell enough and have people out there who are going to buy product and make that a good use of their time? I think that's another important one. I'll end with the stock market, because I think that's a complicated one. And, I reference that as an indicator that overall the markets aren't putting too much or paying too much credence to this jobs number and $12,000 jobs data number that we saw this past month as a sign of, overall the stock market continues to be growing and strong and people are making money off the stock market. But I don't want us to over-index on that, because like I pointed out, I mean, there's other factors, especially considering that, at least half the country is not investing in the stock market, that we all need to consider and look at our lives and decide whether or not we feel like we are comfortable, and if we're comfortable economically. And if we're not, what's driving that uncertainty? What's driving that stress? For a lot of people, it will be like healthcare premiums, like you just mentioned and we were discussing, childcare costs, that's not something that's going to be discussed on CNBC, with all the business press every day or in a lot of mainstream media sources. But absolutely, that is something that leads to a lot of stress and determines how good we feel about the economy. And so I think it's a challenge, actually, your question. I'm going to turn it back to the audience as well to be real about what those factors are, try to pinpoint what the source of the stress is, and make sure that we're communicating that to the people who represent us so they have an accurate picture of the indicators that should be driving policymaking, not just the typical data points that the experts are always encouraging us to look to.
All right, then. Morgan Harper, always great to have you on the show, breaking those numbers down. Thanks a lot.
Great to see you.
All right, then. Folks, lots more to talk about, including some new ads the Kamala Harris campaign has dropped. Also, some ads from some other folks as well. We're going to show you those things. And so lots to break down. 4 days away, folks, from Election Day. If you can early vote, get it done. Don't wait until Tuesday. Make your vote count. And we want to see Black folks turning out in huge numbers at the polls all across the country. Folks, you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network, live in Mobile, Alabama, where they're having the second annual Port City Classic. Don't forget, support the work that we do. We travel around the country covering the stories other folks do not cover. And so please join our Bring the Funk fan club. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing on average $50 each. That's $4.19 a month, 13 cents a day. You can, of course, contribute via check or money order. P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be right back.
Her blanket.
First of all, I'm the one that got rid of Roe v. Wade.
Do you believe in punishment for abortion?
There has to be some form of punishment.
For the woman?
Yeah, there has to be some form.
Women will be happy, healthy, confident, and free. You will no longer be thinking about abortion. So all they talk about abortion. You will no longer be abandoned, lonely, or scared. You will no longer have anxiety. You will be protected, and I will be your protector.
Disastrous, alarming, a plan that shreds American values. That's what independent news sources and conservatives are saying about a proposal from right-wing extremists called Project 2025. It would threaten hundreds of thousands of jobs created by the Clean Energy Plan, give massive tax breaks to big oil, and roll back protections that keep corporations from poisoning our water with toxic chemicals. Project 2025, a dream for them, a disaster for you.
Trump ain't
Did you know that Trump wanted the military to actually shoot Black Lives Matter protesters? I mean,
Trump is not
He let people die during COVID and then told us to drink bleach.
he tried to kill the stimulus bill and couldn't, so he delayed the money just so he could put his name on the check.
Trump ain't
He used the death penalty to execute black men like Brandon Bernard.
He f***ed Obama's economy, lost thousands of black jobs. He started inflation and gave his billionaire buddies a tax cut.
America, Trump ain't Don't vote for that man. He's nothing but
Vote Kamala Harris for president.
This is Reggie Rock Byford. You're watching
Roland Martin Unfiltered, uncut, unplugged, and undamn believable. You hear me?
Folks, an organization known as Follow the Law is running ads in key swing states encouraging election officials to question or, in some case, refuse to certify election results. This is the Republicans' plan. Now, courts have found this to be illegal for more than a century. ProPublica and Wisconsin Watch teamed up for this investigative piece called Election Skeptics Are Targeting Voting Officials with ads that suggest they don't have to certify results. Phoebe Petrovich, one of the reporters on this, joins us now from Madison, Wisconsin. Phoebe, this is what we call one of the tactics that Steve Bannon and others have been pushing since 2016. After they lost in 2020, they have been angry. They said they were going to be targeting state election boards, local election boards, to do this very thing. We saw what happened in Georgia. Well, they tried to, this election board tried to change the law in terms of, oh, we're going to go to hand counting ballots, things along those lines. This is how Republicans are trying to muck everything up. And listen, lawyers better be ready, because this is going to be a legal battle if this is a very close election come Tuesday night.
Yeah, as you said, it's totally part of a playbook. This is just one piece in a larger project to kind of leverage every mechanism you possibly can in the election system to their advantage. And one of the really important things with this story was trying to get out the word that certification is mandatory, that this is something courts have held is a mandatory duty of election officials for over a century. And Follow the Law, the organization that we uncovered in this piece, does not identify who they are. They say on their website that they're just a group of lawyers committed to election integrity, but in fact, we found that they are connected with Republicans who have been attacking certification across the country.
You know, and what we have to understand, I mean, I can't remember the woman's name, but, you know, the clerk in, was it Arizona, who went to federal prison because she refused to certify the election results and was crying, and they were like, oh, my God, she's a victim. No, she broke the law.
So other people have done the research. It seems like there's upwards of at least 35 officials across the country who have attempted to either refuse or delay certification since 2020, and all of those people have been unsuccessful. This has not been successful yet in the United States of America because, exactly as you said, this is a legal requirement, and in some cases there are criminal penalties that people will face. Someone also in Arizona, in Cochise County, an elections official just pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor for failing to uphold her duties as an election official after voting twice to delay certification. She ultimately was compelled to certify in 2022 by a court, and she did so. And yet, even still, she was charged with 2 felonies. She pleaded down to a misdemeanor, but she has a criminal record now for that misdemeanor because she tried to shirk her legal responsibility.
You've been talking to obviously election experts, and are they scared to death, or are they very worried that we are going to have legal mayhem with this election that just makes 2020 look like recess?
I think that everyone. I think that everyone that I spoke to, elections experts, elections administrators themselves, journalists, lawyers, poll workers, like everyone is just, we're realizing that we're not going to get a lot of sleep, that this is going to be a legal fight, that regardless of the outcome, there will probably be litigation and contestation. I can't speak to whether or not people are scared to death, but they do anticipate that there will be lawsuits. There has been a broad swath of activists and advocacy groups that have sort of attacked certification and tried to undermine it since 2020. But the good thing is that, you know, people are prepared and know about it now and are ready. And so I'm sure that just as there are people who are preparing to file litigation challenging certification, there are lawyers across the country who are prepared to fight back as well.
All right, then. Phoebe Petrovich, ProPublica. So appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me.
Matt, I want to start with you. Bottom line is this here. These Republicans are going to do whatever they can to try to steal this election, and folks had better be prepared for what is going to come down next week.
Correct. And, to me, it seems like a lot of these lawyers who are involved and are kind of signaling they may be attacking certification processes may be doing so at their own peril because, in a lot of these situations, we know they're going to be frivolous claims or claims that are otherwise not buttressed by a verification or somebody signing off saying they have good authority that, an election process was somehow untoward. So, one, it seems to me like you shouldn't be signaling you're going to file a lawsuit until you actually have credible evidence that something bad happened. But what I wanted to ask Phoebe that I did not get to ask that I think is a very important question is obviously all of the states have different mechanisms for how they conduct elections. And I would be interested in knowing what particular states we need to be concerned about that have either a democratized certification process, meaning they have more than one person who has to vote to certify, or what other legal mechanisms we might see beyond a single person refusing to certify the votes, because that seems to be the easier circumstance to overcome, right? But if you have an election board or some body that gets to certify and you have dissension within those ranks, it seems like certain states could be in play the way that others aren't. And that's my own ignorance speaking, but maybe you can clarify, states that may have a different certification process that would make this potentially more onerous in those states.
Well, that is an issue, and people have to understand that our elections are state elections, and it comes down to that county and the locale. Listen, Derek, y'all have been going through this in Georgia when the Republicans lied about voter fraud, completely overhauled the results because they lost in 2020, and they want to try to strip power from places like in Fulton County and put it under state control.
Roland, and you're right. I always say Georgia's ground zero, right? Because if you go back to 2020, where we were. But I will say, just today, Roland, I'm reporting that the Secretary of State that he's going to uphold the certification. And so when you think about across these battleground states, these attorneys generals and lawyers being hired on both sides, they're already signaling for the most part that they're going to uphold the law. And that is refreshing because if you go back to 2020, over 60 different federal judges told Donald Trump to go pack sand because they were not going to overturn the election. And so I still truly believe that some folks still going to abide by the law. They're going to uphold next Tuesday the results, however those results may be.
Michael?
Yeah, Roland, this is more treachery and skullduggery from Republicans. And, just a couple of days ago, Donald Trump slyly said that he and Speaker Mike Johnson have a secret weapon, and that when you deal with it in the federal level, when it comes to certifying election results, they're going to try to pull something there if it's close. So this is this is to be expected from Republicans. And reading this article from ProPublica, the ad directs you to a website that has misinformation about the actual laws there in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin when it comes to certifying election results. So, instead of trying to create better policies to make people want to vote for your candidates, you're trying to find other ways to lie to people and steal elections. So this is why it's important for people to vote. Hopefully, it's not a close election. I think a lot of the polls are not accurately measuring the enthusiasm that Vice President Kamala Harris has as well. She just had 75,000 people at the Ellipse in Washington, D.C. when she spoke. But this is why elections have consequences.
Okay, I got Michael, I got to stop you because in a moment, the Vice President actually is about to come up and speak. Real quick, some breaking news: the U.S. Supreme Court is allowing a Pennsylvania court ruling to stand that will allow folks who have problems with their mail-in ballots to still be counted, for them to be corrected, and so that's from the Supreme Court. Not sure how many people are going to be impacted by that. But again, Alito wrote that the court couldn't give the Republicans who brought the appeal what they wanted, even if it wanted to. He said it's a matter of considerable importance. Even if we agreed with the applicant's federal constitutional argument, a question on which I expressed no view at this time, we could not prevent the consequence they fear. All right, folks, let's go to, is it Wisconsin? The Vice President of Wisconsin? She's there. Let's go there right now.
All the leaders, everyone, and thank you for taking the time out of your busy lives to be here this afternoon. You know, we are all here because we care, and we know that this is about community and of all of us being here together at one time, and I thank you all. And I want to thank my dear friend Tammy Baldwin. Send her back to the United States Senate. Lieutenant Governor Rodriguez. County Executive Nelson. And the chair of our Democratic Party, Ben Wickler. All right, we have work to do. Okay, Wisconsin, 4 days left in probably one of, if not the most consequential elections of our lifetime. And we have work to do still. We have a lot of work to do, but we like hard work. Hard work is good work. Hard work is joyful work. And make no mistake, we will win. We will win. We will win. We will win. And one of the reasons, and yes, we will win. And we will win, and we will win because we are the type of people who we know when you know what you stand for, you know what to fight for. You know what to fight for, right? And in this election, we have an opportunity to finally turn the page on a decade of Donald Trump trying to keep us divided and afraid of each other. We're done with that. We're done. We're exhausted with that. And we know that's who he is, but Wisconsin, that's not who we are. That's not who we are. That's not who we are. And it is time for a new generation of leadership in America. And I am ready to offer that leadership as the next president of the United States of America. And Wisconsin, you know me, I'm not afraid of tough fights. For decades, clearly, for decades, I was a prosecutor and the top law enforcement officer of the biggest state, and I won fights against the big banks who ripped off homeowners, against for-profit colleges that scammed veterans and students, against predators who abused women and children, against cartels that trafficked in guns and drugs and human beings. And I pledge to you, if you give me the chance to fight on your behalf as president, there is nothing in the world that will stand in my way. And look, and on the other side, we know who Donald Trump is. Now, this is not someone who is thinking about how to make your life better. He is someone who is increasingly unstable, obsessed with revenge, consumed with grievance, and the man is out for unchecked power. He's out for unchecked power. And in less than 90 days, you can picture the Oval Office. In less than 90 days, it's either going to be him or me sitting in the Oval Office. And family and neighbors who are not here right now, imagine that for a minute, right? January 20th, Oval Office. It's either going to be him sitting in there poring over and stewing over his enemies list, or when I am elected, it will be me walking in there on your behalf working on my to-do list. Because we got work to do. Because we have work to do. And at the top of my list is bringing down the cost of living for you. That will be my focus every single day as president, including I will give a middle-class tax cut to over 100 million Americans. We will enact the first ever federal ban on corporate price gouging on groceries. Fight to make sure that hardworking Americans can actually afford a place to live. And one of the things that we were talking about backstage is about the importance of people being able to care for their family members, and including and in particular their elder family members. And some of you may know, and this is personal for me, as are so many of these issues. I took care of my mother when she was sick. And I know what it is in terms of taking care of someone and just trying to cook the things that they feel like eating, right? Just trying to help them put on a sweater. Trying to think from time to time, what can I do to put a smile on their face or make them laugh? It is important work, and it is work that is about dignity. It's about dignity. And if you are caring then for an elderly parent or relative, my plan is to cover the cost of home care under Medicare. So you don't have to worry about either spending down whatever savings you have to qualify for Medicaid, or quitting your job and cutting off a source of income to be able to stay at home. In particular, if you're in the sandwich generation, meaning that you are taking care of your kids while you are taking care of a parent. It's about dignity. And my plan will also lower the cost of child care. Again, about dignity. About dignity. My plan is to prioritize cutting taxes for small businesses. Do we have small business owners here? I love our small businesses. You are part of the backbone of America's economy. And that's the work we will do. We will do the work of lowering health care costs, because I believe so deeply and strongly, access to health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. It's about values. It's about values. On the other hand, Donald Trump's answer to the financial pressures you face are the same as they were last time. Another $1 trillion in tax cuts for billionaires and the biggest corporations. And this time, he will pay for it with a 20% national sales tax on everything that you buy that is imported. Clothes, food, toys, cell phones. A Trump sales tax that would cost the average American family, economists have measured it, more than $4,000 a year that you are not paying, you would have to pay because of that tax. And on top of that, as we have discussed, he still wants to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, which would throw millions of people, millions of Americans, off of their health insurance. and take us back to the time when insurance companies could deny people with pre-existing conditions. You remember what that was? Well, you are correct. We are not going back. We are not going back. We're not going back. And we are not going back because just like Wisconsin's state motto tells us, we will move forward. We will move forward. You guys know that best. So ours is a fight for the future, and it is a fight for freedom. Like the fundamental freedom of a woman to be able to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. And we remember how we got here. Donald Trump, when he was president, hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. They did as he intended, and now over 20 states have a Trump abortion ban. Imagine, in America today, 1 in 3 women lives in a state with a Trump abortion ban. Many with no exceptions, even for rape and incest, which is immoral. And Donald Trump's not done. He would ban abortion nationwide, yes, even here in Wisconsin were that to happen. And he would restrict access to birth control, put IVF treatments at risk, and force states, get this, to monitor women's pregnancies. Just Google Project 2025, which I still can't believe they put in writing. And let us agree, one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree the government shouldn't be telling her what to do. Not the government. Not the government. Not the government. And when Congress, together with Tammy's leadership, passes a bill to restore reproductive freedom nationwide, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. Proudly sign it into law. So, Wisconsin, I am asking for your vote. I am asking for your vote. And here is my pledge to you. Here is my pledge to you. As president, I pledge to seek common ground and common sense solutions to the challenges you face. I pledge that I am not looking to score political points. I am looking to make progress. And I pledge to listen to those who will be impacted by the decisions I make. I will listen to experts. I will listen to the people who disagree with me. Because you see, unlike Donald Trump, I don't believe that people who disagree with me are the enemy. He wants to put them in jail. I'll give them a seat at the table. That's what a democracy is about. That's what leaders do. And it is my pledge to always put country above party and self, and to be a president for all Americans. For all Americans. That is my pledge to you, Wisconsin. So let me ask, we're 4 days out. Who here has already voted? Oh, wow! Oh, my goodness. That's great. Thank you. Okay, well, here's what I want to ask. I want to ask a little more of you. Please talk to your friends and family and neighbors and share your perspective. Share why you have taken the time out of your lives to spend this time here when there's so many other things you could do. Let them know, because this moment, I think, really is our opportunity to reconnect with people and remind them they're not alone and build community. And so please, share with them why this election is important to you and encourage them to make their voices heard. And for anyone who's not yet voted, no judgment. But please take a moment now to just think about what your plan will be for when and where you will vote. And please go to iwillvote.com. Yes, I have a website. For all the information you might need about when and where you can go to vote and where to drop off your absentee ballot. Wisconsin, truly, we need everyone to vote here. You, Wisconsin, are going to make the difference in this election. You will make the difference. You will make the difference. And so it all comes down to this. We are here together because we love our country. We love our country. And when you love something, you fight for it. And I do believe it is one of the highest forms of patriotism, an expression of our love of our country, to then fight for the ideals of our country. That's what this is about. And it is fighting for the promise of America. And I'll tell you, I have always believed in our nation's promise because I have lived it. I grew up as a child of the Civil Rights Movement. My parents took me to the marches when I was in a stroller. And there were people there from every walk of life who came together to fight for freedom and for opportunity. Growing up, I saw how hard my mother worked to raise my sister and me and to give us the same chances that our country gave her. And I was blessed to have family by blood and family by love who instilled in me, you know what I'm talking about, and instilled in me the values of community and compassion and faith. And I've spent my life fighting for people who have been hurt and who have been counted out, but who never stopped believing in our country that anything is possible. I have lived the promise of America, and I see the promise of America in everyone who is here, in all of us, in all of us, in all of us. This is the promise of America. This is the promise of America. In the fathers and mothers and grandparents who work hard every day for the future of their children. In the women who refuse to accept a future without reproductive freedom. And in the men who support them. In Republicans who have never voted for a Democrat before but are putting the Constitution of the United States above party. Of America is all around us. It is in the young leaders who are voting for the very first time. Where are you? Where are you? Oh, I love Gen Z. I really do. You know what I love about this generation? You all are rightly impatient for change. Determined to live free from gun violence, to take on the climate crisis. You guys are going to shape the world you inherit. And for this generation, none of these issues is theoretical for them. It's not political for them. For you all, it is a lived experience. It is a lived experience. That's right. And I see you, and I see your power. And I am so proud of you when I think about the future of our nation. So can we hear it for our first-time voters? Right. get this thing done, and no one can sit on the sidelines. Well, let's spend the next 4 days so that when we look back on these 4 days, we have no regrets that we did everything that we could. So let's knock on doors, let's text and call voters, let's reach out to family and friends and classmates and neighbors and coworkers. And as we do, please, I do ask you, let us be intentional about building community. Let us be intentional about building coalitions. Let us remind each other and others that we have so much more in common than what separates us. Let us do that. There is power in that. It will strengthen our country. And we'll remind folks also, your vote is your voice, and your voice is your power. It is your power. Today I ask you, are you ready to make your voices heard? Do we believe in freedom? Do we believe in opportunity? Do we believe in the promise of America? And are we ready to fight for it? And when we fight, we win. God bless you, and God bless the United States.
Folks, that's Vice President Kamala Harris live in Little Chute, Wisconsin. Huge rally there. She is closing absolutely strong. There's no doubt she is energized by what she is seeing all across the country. And of course, there's going to be a massive rally tonight in Milwaukee. As I said, the Isley Brothers, Glorilla, Cardi B, others are going to be performing there as well. And so you see what's going on there, folks. I'm going to go to a break. We come back. We're going to talk about more of this campaign. There's some new ads that the campaign has dropped. I want to share some of those with you as well, plus some other groups. And we'll talk more about this crucial election, folks. We are 4 days away from the election being over. And so we'll keep talking about it. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network, broadcasting live from Mobile, Alabama, site of the second annual Port City Classic. Back in a moment.
Here's a 78-year-old billionaire who has not stopped whining about his problems.
Oh, she had a big crowd. Oh, the crowd.
This weird obsession with crowd sizes. It just goes on and on and on. America's ready for a new chapter. We are ready for a President Kamala Harris.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
Wrongfully convicted.
5 teenagers were arrested, tried, convicted, and sent to prison.
No men were exonerated.
What he did to us, he tried to end us.
Of course I hate these people.
So-called the Central Park 5.
Calling for execution. And let's all hate these people.
You cannot have this man go into office again.
And I want society to hate him.
We were innocent kids. The confessions were coerced.
Today, we are exonerated. That guy says he still stands by the original guilty verdict.
This is about democracy being on the ballot.
I have absolutely no compassion.
Look at Kamala. She represents the kaleidoscope of the human family. There's something different happening in America. We will get the opportunity to build a future where we will be able to thrive and not just survive.
In 2016, Donald Trump said he would choose only the best people to work in his White House. Now those people have a warning for America. Trump is not fit to be president again. Here's his vice president.
Anyone who puts himself over the Constitution should never be president of the United States. It should come as no surprise that I will not be endorsing Donald Trump this year.
His defense secretary.
Do you think Trump can be trusted with the nation's secrets ever again?
No. I mean, it's just irresponsible action that places our service members at risk, places our nation's security at risk.
His national security advisor.
Donald Trump will cause a lot of damage. The only thing he cares about is Donald Trump.
And the nation's highest-ranking military officer.
We don't take an oath to a king
or queen or a tyrant or dictator. And we don't take an oath to a wannabe dictator.
Take it from the people who knew him best. Donald Trump is a danger to our troops and our democracy. We can't let him lead our country again.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
What's up, y'all? This is Wendell Haskins, a.k.a. Win Hogan at the original T-Golf Classic. And you know I watch Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Folks, again, 4 days from Election Day, and the Poor People's Campaign are very much involved in contacting millions of low income and poor workers all across this nation. Joining us right now is Reverend Dr. William J. Barber, co-convener of the Poor People's Campaign. He, of course, in his personal capacity, has endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris. He is calling us from South Carolina. Reverend Barber, just talk about the work that y'all have been doing, very much data-driven, and really focusing on reaching the folks, because as you keep saying, if low-income, poor workers, even a small shift of those folks actually vote, that could determine the outcome of this election.
Yeah, Roland, and I want to thank you personally and your listeners, because you understood early on and got involved, and we had this goal of reaching 15 million poor and low-wage workers and people in this country who are mostly already registered but had not voted. And the number one reason they had not voted in recent elections was nobody talked to them. And to date, we have reached over 12 million, which has never been done before. In the states that we looked at, it would only take, the highest state was 10%. Every other state, it was under 7% of poor and low-wage people that didn't vote in the last election. If they voted and voted an agenda, they could determine the outcome of the election. And we have been on this thing. I sent you some data pieces today. You know, like, for instance, in North Carolina, we touched over 990,000 people in this state. They got a report card. They got a video of people people like themselves. And we've had a major, what we call motivation test. We did field tested our message to make sure we just weren't wasting time. But in addition to that, we did old-fashioned canvassing, Roland, and touched over 200 and some thousand individual homes. And Roland, for your listeners, we did this with under 700 volunteers. Under 700 volunteers from the fraternities and sororities and unions and the people in the campaign. It doesn't take a whole lot of people to do something that's massive if we work together.
And when you talk about reaching them, Reverend Barber, just walk us through that. What does that mean? What does that look like? What messages are y'all conveying to those voters?
Well, first of all, the very fact that we talk to them, we reach them, and they're getting peer-to-peer contact. And then the first thing they get when they open that text, and we had high opening percentages, is they get a video that pops right at them, and it's people like themselves saying, why is it that we must vote, and reminding them that poor and low-wage people are the largest swing vote in the country, potential swing vote in the country. So you got to remind people of their power. That's what, because some people feel helpless. They feel like they don't have any power. The second thing that we talked to them about was the issues that impact their lives. We simply said, this is where Democrats, where Republicans, where Trump and Harris stand on raising the minimum wage. We couldn't tell them who to vote for, but we could tell them where people have stood on these issues. That's what the law allows. Minimum wage, health care, public education, HBCU funding, women's right to choose, women's health. And these are issues that people are concerned about because it impacts them every day. And we say to them, here's where people have stood. We can't tell you who to vote for, but we can tell you where they have stood on these issues. And we even told it if it was a situation where Democrats and Republicans stood basically the same, because we wanted our report card to have legitimacy. We didn't want it to be seen just as a partisan tool. We wanted to say this is something that's telling you the truth. And the last thing they got was how to go and make sure their registrations were good, how to find out about early voting and whatnot in their state. So they got 3 pieces of empowerment, both in person and through our text messaging program.
You talk about, again, where those voters are so important. You got 7 battleground states. When you look at the numbers of the 7, which are the top 3 or 4 where low-income, working-class voters could really decide this election?
Trump won by 74,000 votes in North Carolina the last time. 1 million poor and low-wage voters did not vote. They could have voted. It would only take 7% to outdistance the margin of victory in the last election. In Pennsylvania, the margin of victory was 40,000 of the last election. 1.4 million poor and low-wage people did not vote. It would only take right at 3 to 4% of them to outdistance the margin in the last election. And in Michigan in 2016, Trump wins by 10,000. It would only take
Looks like we lost the connection with Reverend Barber. He is actually driving in South Carolina. Let me know if we get Reverend Barber back. And so, again, let me know if we get him back.
You hear me?
Yeah. Okay, Reverend Barber. Yeah, now we got you. We lost your connection. Go right ahead.
Yeah. I'm sorry. If you look at Michigan, Pennsylvania, and North Carolina alone, you're talking about 4 million people that did not vote, poor and low wage that did not vote. But in those same states, you're only talking about 100,000 vote margin between those states. You know, that's the thing we're trying to show people. Trump won in 2016, Roland, by 80,000 votes in 3 states that gave him the margin of victory in the Electoral College. In those same states, over 4.5 million poor and low-wage voters did not vote. So Linda Lake and other folk who oppose him said it's a form of political suicide not to go after this particular margin, this particular voting block. Let me tell you one other thing. They did a study and found out that in Georgia, the margin of victory was there were 1 million voters that did not vote. The exit polls showed that if those 1 million voters were to vote today, the Harris-Walsh campaign would get 749,000 of those. 749,000 out of the 1 million would go toward the Harris-Walsh campaign based on the exit polls. So it's not that every one of them would vote progressive, but what it is a majority of poor and low wealth folk will vote progressive if, in fact, they know that they're voting for somebody that's going to deal with health care and living wages and even voting rights and a woman's right to their own health choices.
Well, again, we keep saying it's 4 days until Election Day, and every vote does count. Reverend Barber, before I let you go, make the case. There's somebody who's out there right now who's watching us, who's listening to us. We're going to share this on social media, and they are on the fence. They don't know if they're going to vote for Harris, if they don't know if they're going to vote for Trump, or if they don't know if they're going to vote at all. There are some people, young folks and others, who say, I'm disaffected. I don't think this stuff matters. I don't believe my vote counts. What would you tell them directly?
Well, 2 things. Join us on Sunday night at 7 o'clock for a national revival that Roland's going to carry of the last push coming from Union Baptist Church in Winston-Salem. But I would say to them, when you look at this campaign, you cannot stay on the fence and have middle ground when you have a fascist-like, constitutional denying, rule of law breaking, fighting against living wage, fighting against health care, fighting against voting rights campaign out here. When you see real clearly what's at stake, everything that we care about in this democracy is at stake. The potential to even have a democracy that really deals with the issues that affect our lives. You know, if you mad because you don't have any money, well, one side is saying the minimum wage is too high. Trump said it's too high. The Harris campaign is saying they're going to raise it to $15 in the union. You've got to look at, you can't just look at the innuendos. You've got to look at policy and what's at stake. One campaign says, I'll break the Constitution. The other says, I want to strengthen it. So you have to look at this. There can be no middle ground at this point. You've got to make a decision. You've got to vote, not just because your mom and dad and others before you died, but because if you don't vote, you could actually be a part, an accessory to the crime of this democracy dying as we know it and becoming something that we really would not recognize or will not recognize in 2 or 3 years. This is the time. This is your moment to step up to the plate.
Indeed. Reverend Dr. William Barber, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, my brother. Take care.
Yes, sir. And as you said, we will be carrying that Sunday Revival live right here on the Black Star Network. In addition, we're going to be in Lansing, Michigan on Sunday, where Vice President Kamala Harris is holding a rally at Michigan State. We're going to go to a break. We're going to come back. I'm going to play you some of these new ads that drop, get thoughts and reflections from our panel, and talk about some of the other news of the day. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered, the Black Star Network. Back in a moment.
Jill Stein, Green Party candidate for president. So why are Trump's close allies helping her? Stein was key to Trump's 2016 wins in battleground states. She's not sorry she helped Trump win. That's why a vote for Stein is really a vote for Trump.
Jill Stein, I like her very much. You know why? She takes 100% from them.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
Disastrous. That's what independent news sources and conservatives are saying about Project 2025. It would threaten hundreds of thousands of jobs, give massive tax breaks to big oil, and roll back protections. A dream for them, a disaster for you.
The overturning of Roe almost killed me. I had a blood clot in my uterus that caused my labor to have to be induced because of the overturn of Roe v. Wade. I wasn't able to get life-saving treatment sooner. I almost died. And that's because of the decision that Donald Trump made.
I was able to get Roe v. Wade terminated, and I'm proud to have done it.
The doctors and nurses were afraid that if they treated me in the incorrect way, that they would be prosecuted for that. And that's appalling. Donald Trump says that women should be punished.
Do you believe in punishment for abortion?
There has to be some form of punishment.
For the woman?
Yeah.
I believe that women should have reproductive freedom to make the choices about their own bodies. 4 more years of Donald Trump means that women's rights will continue to be taken away one by one by one by one. This has to stop because women are dying.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
I get it. The cost of rent, groceries, and utilities is too high. So here's what we're going to do about it. We will lower housing costs by building more homes and crack down on landlords who are charging too much. We will lower your food and grocery bills by going after price gougers who are keeping the cost of everyday goods too high. I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message because you work hard for your paycheck. You should get to keep more of it. As president, I'll make that my top priority.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kim Coles.
Hey, I'm Donnie Simpson.
Yo, it's your man Deion Cole from Blackish, and you watch
Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, folks, welcome back to Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. The Harris campaign rolling out some new ads targeting Donald Trump. Let's roll the first one.
Never before has there been such a danger to America. A creature with orange, leathery skin looms in the shadow, coming to destroy democracy.
You're not going to be a dictator, are you? I said no, 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 other than day one.
Raising prices for families.
100, 200, 2,000% tariff.
Spreading racist lies.
They're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats.
Admiring dictators.
Able to deal with Putin and Kim Jong-un and all of the people that they're very fine people you have to deal with.
Don't believe us? Ask his own staff. Trump asked me to put him over my oath. Anyone who puts himself over the Constitution should never be president. God help us, a total fascist. This creature vies for total unchecked power. Vote Harris Walls to stop him.
right, folks, that's one of those ads. Let's see the second one.
For too long, a cloud has hovered over this country. One of division and fear. Fear of each other. Fear of our differences. He tried to turn us against each other, to normalize violence and hate. But we know who we are. We are Americans. We love this country, and while we may not all share politics or geography, we know the time has come for common sense and common ground. For a leader who holds true to our ideals that all are created equal, and the American dream belongs to each of us. That having a home, making a family, living one's golden years in health and security must not be a privilege for some, but a right for all. And while the fabric of this nation may be tattered, we can mend it together. One family, one community, one vote at a time. It's a new day rising, one of unity and hope, of a shared belief in what's possible when we remember who we are, the greatest nation on earth, America.
All right, here's a pretty good ad the folks at the Midas Touch put together.
We're effectively run in this country by a bunch of childless cat ladies.
We are not going back. Don't go back.
The folks at Vote Vets have really been emphasizing Donald Trump, how scary he would be for the military. And so here's what they just released.
Put on Pavarotti singing Ave Maria. Nice and loud. Turn it up louder. We want a little action here. Turn it up louder.
This American carnage stops right here and stops right now. You also had people that were very fine people on both sides. During my 4 years, nothing happened, and there was great pressure on me having to do with guns. We did nothing. We didn't yield. They're poisoning the blood of our country. That's what they've done. I got rid of Roe v. Wade. We have a woke military. My call was perfect. And then I said, supposing you brought the light inside the body. Yeah, no, I don't take responsibility at all.
I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have.
Proud boys, stand back and stand by. And we're going to the Capitol. You have to get your people to fight, and we fight. We fight like hell. What the hell do you have to lose?
Trump may not remember, but we can never forget.
All right, folks, here is the Don Winslow. He's a progressive book author. He is a book author, big supporter of Vice President Kamala Harris, hates Donald Trump, and he self-financed this ad.
I accept your nomination to be President of the United States of America. Do we believe in freedom? Do we believe in opportunity? Do we believe in a president for all Americans. Good evening, America!
All right, folks. If we have the project Lincoln Project ad, which shows Donald's absolute distaste and distrust of women.
And the first word she heard was the word
the C word. Every woman has heard it. From the angry ex. From the asshole boss. It's not a joke to us. But it is to Trump and Elon.
The pro-Trump super PAC launched by Elon Musk posted and then deleted.
Kamala Harris is a C word. You heard that right. A big old C word.
They even end it with "see you next Tuesday." Well, for once, they're right.
Let's go to our panel. Of course, Derek, Matt, and Michael. Listen, people talk about, hey, ads don't matter. The point of a lot of these are to focus on going viral. And we're going to pull up one more. It's not an actual ad, though. A lot of young women, Matt, on TikTok are recirculating the Access Hollywood tape from 2016, where Donald Trump talked about, in a shameful way, the treatment of women. Now, if you've got women who are 20 years old now, that comes out. They were 12 years old in 2016. And so this thing all of a sudden is flying on social media, flying around on TikTok, and these young women are hearing what Donald Trump had to say. This is the kind of thing that I do believe is having a tremendous impact of driving young women to the polls. And we're seeing it in the early voting data.
Yeah, see, also the E. Jean Carroll allegations were from, what, the 90s or the late 80s? So obviously, or I think it was the 90s. Let me not speak incorrectly. But that, buttresses that is a pattern of conduct, right? That's the kind of thing that somebody's been doing for years. And you get caught on a tape, surreptitiously thinking you're not being recorded, saying something as abhorrent as he did. So I think you're right. I think those women from 8 years ago who are 20-year-olds now, or were even 10-year-olds then, or 18-year-olds now voting in their first election, will not forget those things. What I wanted to say about the ads, though, I think sometimes they are a little bit superfluous, especially at this stage. However, I think a couple of them are particularly important, and I thought it was very clever, the one about the creature from the Orange Lagoon, because I know the Atlantic reported yesterday that in Pennsylvania in particular, the early voting numbers show, I think, a 5% lead for Vice President Harris, and that was a 5% lead for Mr. Trump, I believe, a week ago. So there's very clearly a groundswell, and that, to be particular, that 5% lead is in voters 65 or older. And that's important because that's a demographic that I think customarily has gone to the Republicans voting in early voting, but it's going the other way for Vice President Harris right now. I think that's a very good sign, and I think maybe the ads are one of the things that plays into that. But moreover, one of the other things I want to mention is that I think the most effective of any of these ads are the ads where they just put back-to-back very caustic things that Trump has said, because what you very often see, and what you're seeing from his team right now with the Liz Cheney comments, is they try to one-off everything. But the thing about it is Mr. Trump continues to say hateful things and has for 40 years at this point. And when you string them all together, it is very hard to make any kind of cognizable defense against that. I mean, if you are voting for Trump, you are doing so in spite of a overwhelming body of evidence of hateful rhetoric and continued hateful rhetoric. So I think those ads are particularly effective. And if there are anybody out there who's actually still on the fence, that's what I think would push them over the balance to not vote for Mr. Trump and to vote for Vice President Harris.
I brought up the Access Hollywood tape, and we're going to try to find one of these TikTok videos. And Carol, what I saw, it was two young women who were sitting next to each other. They were listening to the tape. And so if y'all could find that video and we could play it, please do so. Also, Michael, a video that was circulating Donald Trump, when he testified before Congress, where he was trying to stop the expansion of Native American casinos. And he was like, well, these people, they don't look Native American. And again, showing how racist he has always been.
Absolutely. White supremacist, racist to the core. I heard this morning on MSNBC them talking about Gen Z finding out about the Access Hollywood tape and how they've been circulating on social media. And I didn't even realize that they didn't know about the Access Hollywood tape. You know, a lot of times, certain things we just take for granted, even though because it's been shown ad nauseum, right? We just think everybody knows about it. But they're finding out about that, and they're coming away realizing, putting all this into perspective. And at the same time, he bragged about taking away a woman's right to choose what she does with her body and overturning Roe versus Wade. But the commercial, and I know you probably talked about it here on the show earlier this week, Roland, but the commercial, I think, is really pissing off MAGA. And Jesse Waters talked about it on Fox News. Is the commercial where you have it's saying that women, you don't have to tell your husband who you voted for. And when you're in the voting booth, you know, that's a private matter. So he said that a woman who doesn't vote the way her husband votes, that's like cheating on her husband. OK, this is how sick these people are. These people are back in the 1950s and really trying to take us back to the 1850s. So, oh, yeah, these people have to be defeated. But you listen to them. You listen to them. And it's like, where did these people come from? You know, what type of upbringing did they have to think of women like that, dehumanize women like that? So this is another reason why elections have consequences.
What Derek, I'll tell you, is very interesting when we talk about that. Guys, let me know, control when y'all have that ad. I think we ran it the other day. And man, these folks on the right wing were pissed off. And there's this idiot, this black dude. He's on named Delano something. He's stupid. Delano Squires, and so he took exception to me criticizing Republicans whining about that. And these dudes are so-called Christians, and they really believe women should stay in their place. And they really, because I was criticizing this one pastor who said that women should be following the lead and voting like their husbands. But they are upset. Yeah, Charlie Kirk was foaming at the mouth on Megyn Kelly's show, and you would have thought Megyn Kelly would have checked him on that, but of course she's been kissing Donald Trump's ass so much, you think she's a member of the family now. But it goes to show you, how effective these ads are. And what's interesting is that women have been, I've been seeing these all across social media, they've been leaving Post-it notes in women's restrooms all around the country in stalls saying, your vote is private. You don't have to vote with your husband. I mean, look, that's low key guerrilla tactics. But the bottom line is, in a margin election, you take whatever you can get.
You know, Roland, you're exactly right. These ads are very effective. They're so effective that you have individuals like LeBron James that makes an endorsement and roll in some of these ads. The other benefit, you have these young ladies on TikTok. Again, they roll in these ads, and they have this one in particular that has gone viral the last 24 to 48 hours. It says, my vote will cancel out my dad's vote or my brother's vote or my uncle's vote. And this thing has gone viral. And so the benefit of these ads is clearly to get underneath Trump's campaign team and those who following Trump. But more importantly, these ads are demonstrating how quick and nimble the Kamala Harris campaign team is to get this out on social media, so that way it can penetrate TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, X, and all these various platforms with her message, and to really paint the picture how very different these two presidential candidates are.
Absolutely. And do we have, guys, do we have that? that ad, the women voting in private ad? Do we have that?
And one other thing I would add, Roland, as a retired naval officer, you've seen other organizations outside of the campaign team who are also bringing their voice when it comes to these ads. How they're saying how Trump is not only unfit and unqualified to ever stand behind the seal, but to be commander-in-chief, especially when he made the comment that he's going to use the military to round up citizens. And he crossed the line when he said that. And then military vets came out with their ad.
All right, let's roll that ad, y'all.
You still voting for him?
Hell yeah.
What about your wife?
She doesn't like him, but she's voting for him.
Same with mine.
So control room, I sent y'all another one, if y'all could pull that. So that one was a Lincoln Project ad. So if y'all could pull this next one, Julia Roberts actually voiced an ad. And just so y'all know, I'm sitting here, you know, I typed in YouTube, you type in women voting against husband. So you see this piece in the Washington Examiner, conservative paper. Julia Roberts under fire for inviting women to vote differently than their husbands. Then you see Charlie Kirk and Jesse Waters at Fox News upset. Sky News Australia, owned by Rupert Murdoch, a tacky Harris campaign ad presents a negative approach. Greg Gutfeld is upset. White nationalist Matt Walsh, who's absolutely a sexist. This Democrat ad is the most vile. I love this here. This Democrat ad is the most vile anti-family campaign ever. These white men are so mad and upset that they are losing their minds because they actually believe it. Look, that was a story I saw 2 weeks ago where a woman said, you know, this is the first time I voted in my life because my husband would not let me vote. She said, but he dead now and I'm voting. So if y'all have the Julia Roberts ad, go ahead and roll it. All right, y'all don't have it yet. Let me know when y'all have it. But again, Matt, this is what these ads do work because what it's doing is you're not focused necessarily on trying to get on television, but if you're able to, again, drive this on social and it gets picked up and it goes viral and it's on Instagram and it's being shared and liked, whatever, it changes the game.
Yeah, I think it does. And I think, you know, I said superfluous earlier. That's not the right word. I think what I'm trying to say is at this stage, I would think people would have their mind made up. But for those who don't, I do think that they're powerful, especially like Derek spoke to. Anything I've seen that is, you know, a commercial where it's vets that are denouncing Mr. Trump, I think are particularly effective, especially when you have somebody coming in, you know, who's going to be a fascist if military people are saying he's not the right guy. Now, let me first say, I'm not giving legal advice, but please don't go to the polls and talk to anybody else casting a vote. Don't get yourself arrested. I get the sentiment, and I like that from the Lincoln Project ad, but, you know, obviously you don't want to be talking to anybody at the polls. But I do think that's effective. And I think it's crazy that in 2024, we're still having conversations about women as property, because that's ultimately what this comes down to. There's a large contingent of men who think that their wife is essentially their property, or at least that they can control, her decisions. And obviously women are autonomous. And not only that, women vote in higher proportions than men do. So clearly, they are making informed decisions. And it's crazy that you'd have somebody like that woman saying, this is the first time I'm going to vote because my husband wouldn't let me. That's absurd, but unfortunately some people's reality. So I'm glad it's being called out. And I'm glad that women are mobilizing, as they always do, in this election, because that's going to be what tips the balance. In fact, I have a local colleague who's running for local DA, and he is convinced that Vice President Harris is going to win gangbusters because particularly the percentage of women who have come out to vote in early voting in our local county. He's just, screaming it from the rooftops, and he's very excited about those numbers. So if that tracks nationally, we should see a landslide. And I don't know that that will happen in a margin race, but he's a pretty smart guy and he knows elections very well. So that's his prediction, and it's interesting to hear that at this juncture.
Here's the Julia Roberts voiced ad.
Your turn, honey.
In the one place in America where women still have a right to choose. You can vote any way you want. And no one will ever know.
Did you make the right choice?
Sure did, honey. Remember, what happens in the booth stays in the booth. Vote Harris Walls. Vote Common Good is responsible for the contents of this ad.
Oh, I love that it's driving them crazy. We're going to show you the TikTok ad that's going viral. But I want to show you all this here. This happened in Orangeburg, South Carolina, where this racist white SOB lost his mind. And what pisses me off the most, that it was all these women, these black women in the polling booth. I wish that was a brother who was in there who could have clocked his ass. Y'all watch. This is not, y'all, a fake video. This is a real video. What's wrong, Matt?
I was going to say that tall sister was about to give him the work, so it didn't necessarily need to be a brother there. She was ready.
Yo, yeah. The what?
She was right to give him that good work.
Oh, she was ready to roll. So folks, roll a video so people can see what we're talking about.
You fucking bitch.
Oh,
There's no reason. Yeah, all that sir.
Wow.
Listen, this is my motherfucking right here.
Wow.
Why is it defending you?
It's like defending you.
All right, then shut the hell up and let me vote.
Okay, Jamie. Okay, we ain't got nothing else to say. We ain't got nothing else to say. Wow. Move on. Next thing.
There it is right there.
No. Wow. Wow, God. Oh. Don't do that. Wow. 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 May want to help with him. And his last
that sister threw the dukes up. She was like, yo, you want to jump? Jump.
Yeah.
Not only that, Roland, they were clearly in the right. They were clearly in the right because he was wearing a campaign hat. And in a lot of states, much like Georgia as well, you cannot wear any kind of campaign paraphernalia. And so this is one of those reasons why I'm so excited to demonstrate that we are demonstrating that whatever the Trump campaign team want to bring, we're going to meet them where they are. And all this hype and all this bravado, we're strong and we can do what we want. Clearly, this has gone viral. And this video is demonstrating that women are standing up even against a white man in South Carolina.
Again, Matt, the law is the law. You cannot wear campaign material in. First of all, there are rules. You have a certain number of feet away where you can have it called electioneering, and that's called electioneering. He was in the wrong. He decided to call the woman a bitch, cuss them out, and they were like, "Nah, you ain't voting."
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. I went to vote the other day, and I had my phone out, sending an email or something, and I was promptly told I had to put my phone away. I mean, there are rules, and obviously you should adhere to them, and I did adhere to it. And, this is really less a symptom of what the rules are and more the fact that people who are determined to not follow the rules and who are determined to say that it's a crooked process are not going to follow the rules and say it's a crooked process unless they win. We know that that's coming, but this, abject violence is just never going to be defensible. And I want to really make sure we address that. Look, there should have been other people standing up, but these women were more than enough in this situation. You don't need a man there. You needed these women doing exactly what they did, which is stand up against what they know was an injustice. And I want to take back, let me say, one statement I made. And there was not just one sister. There were actually three that were really involved in making sure that he did not get to brutalize that woman. So that's important that we empower people. As Derek said, look, we got to meet them where they are. We obviously cannot condone violence, but we also cannot condone people going and being violent and cowering, because that's a lot of times what a bully wants, right? Sometimes you gotta punch a bully in the nose, let them know they can't get away with what they're doing. And that's what this guy wanted to do. He came with a Let's Go Brandon hat. We know that that's political. He was told to take it off, but he did not even legitimize these women as having the authority to tell him what he could do. And that's the crux of the problem. So people like that have to be put in their place, and I'm glad that these women did that.
Mike?
Yeah, I'm glad that situation did not escalate farther. He was definitely in the wrong. I read the article about that. Yeah, he had a Let's Go Brandon hat, which tells me who he's voting for. And, it's interesting that this took place in South Carolina, because that's where the Civil War started. But, just the sheer ignorance that he showed. If he just took the hat off, left it outside, put it in a trash can, what have you, it wouldn't have been a problem. But he wanted to argue with them, cuss them out. So, I know at some polls, like when I voted early, I voted Tuesday here in Detroit, they had at least one police officer there. So, hopefully at this precinct, if they don't normally have at least one person representing law enforcement there, they'll do that so to keep things like this from escalating.
Indeed. All right, folks, this is the TikTok video I was telling you all about that a lot of young women have been sharing all across TikTok as well as Instagram and other platforms.
Moved on her, and I failed. I'll admit it.
Whoa.
I did try and fuck her. She was married.
Huge news there.
No, Nancy. Yeah. No, this was marriages, and I moved on her very heavily. In fact, I took her out furniture shopping. She wanted to get some furniture. I said, I'll show you where they have some nice furniture. I took her out furniture. I moved on her like a bitch, but I couldn't get there, and she was married. And all of a sudden, I see her. She's now got the big phony tits and everything. She's totally changed her look. I better use some Tic Tacs just in case I start kissing her. I'm automatically attracted to beautiful. I just start kissing them. It's like a magnet. You just kiss. I don't even wait. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab them by the pussy. You can do anything.
Pull the hem.
So, again, a lot of these young women had never heard that tape. They've been sharing it. You hear what this man had to say. You hear, and here's the thing that just remind people, Derek, looking back, it was so many Republicans who were shocked, who blasted that. Oh my God, I could never support a man who does that. I have daughters, I have wives, whatever. And guess what? They all did. They all have been kissing his ass since then, and now they are running behind him. And it shows you what I said on ABC This Week 3 years ago. They have no morals, no values, no principles, no integrity. no ethics. It's all about naked power.
You're exactly right, Roland. And think about it. When that video surfaced, that was October 2016. And we all thought that was the October surprise and he was going to be torpedoed. But instead, 54% white women voted for him. 57% white men still voted for him. Lindsey Graham voted for him, right? Mitch McConnell voted for him. So all these individuals, as you just outlined, clearly demonstrated that their morals, their ethics, their values, their principles were in the cellar. They were in the mud. And so he interpreted that win in 2016 after that tape as a mandate to be able to say and do what he will, and he has been doing it these last 8 years.
Michael?
Yeah, Roland. Before this morning, because I heard him talk about it this morning, the video of the people from Gen Z circulating the video online, and I saw a clip of that video that you just showed just now. And before today, I didn't realize that Gen Z didn't know about Access Hollywood. You know, so to see them react to this.
In fact, a poll came out saying that 38% of Gen Z had no idea about this Access Hollywood video.
Wow. Well, and this is why social media is so powerful, because that type of information can be shared and traveled, and they can share peer to peer also. But I think that resurfacing, then on top of them knowing about him paying Stormy Daniels $130,000 to keep quiet, not to reveal the affair between them, and other things, him being found liable of sexually assaulting E. Jean Carroll. All this comes together, and I think it's going to galvanize them. And at the same time, he's talking about sexually abusing women. He takes away a woman's right to choose as well with his 3 Supreme Court justices. So I think he's going to have hell to pay on November the 5th at the ballot box.
Matt?
I mean, I echo their sentiments. I don't really know that I have too much to add beyond I'm surprised, actually, that people didn't know about that tape. And, you know, like I said earlier with the ads, it's just another thing that adds to a long list of things that he's said like this. And this is especially heinous, I mean, because he didn't think he was being recorded, most likely. I don't know if it's ever been reported on that, but he was talking as though there was nobody there recording. And that's a problem, because obviously he says terrible, horrible things in public now, but some of that, or he's always said it, but some of that is normalized more so because there has been no consequence to that rhetoric. And hopefully that consequence this time will be him not being elected for a second time. But it's interesting to me that people didn't already know that, especially with how long things exist on the internet. Something goes up on the internet now and stays there forever. So I'm surprised Gen Z en masse had not seen that before.
Again, I mean, I think one of the things that we forget is that, look, there are a lot of people, they're not watching news, they're not watching a lot of these sources. And then again, if you are, you know, in your 20s, this came out 8 years ago, you weren't even paying attention to the presidential race. And so that's the one beauty, though. Guess what? That video is always here. Gentlemen, I certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much, Derek, Matt, and Michael. Thank you so very much. Folks, Vice President Kamala Harris sat down in a barbershop in Philadelphia, chopped it up with some brothers about some issues. We want to go ahead and show you that right now. And here's that conversation.
But that's beside the point.
You got all kinds. I mean, you got all kinds of stories for the barbershop. I know.
It sounds like somebody's pulling up. Clear up the misinformation about your background on criminal justice.
I was probably one of the first elected prosecutors in the country.
to say we need to have reentry initiatives. And I designed from scratch and wrote out a program that focused in particular on young men who are arrested for drug sales. My policy was that we were not going to jail people for simple marijuana. And by the way, right now, I believe we need to just actually legalize the whole thing, and that's part of my platform.
Yeah, for sure. Shakur over here is a dean of students, and he works with our young people every day.
I'm from Philly, born and raised, uptown to be exact. I've been in education for 10 years. I started off as a teacher's assistant in a school in North Philly.
Only 1% of teachers in public schools are black men.
Yeah, for sure.
1%. The statistics are if a black child has a black teacher by the end of 3rd grade, they're like 13% more likely to go to college.
To succeed, yeah.
But to go to college even. And, you know, part of actually my focus and agenda is what we've got to do to create incentives, which really are not necessarily incentives in terms of the will, but also we don't pay teachers enough.
Right.
Student loan debt is an issue, you know, and thinking about how we create incentives to actually recruit and retain, because we know the benefit to overall society, and in particular to our children. You know, the beauty of human nature also is that when you set a high bar and you give people the chance to reach it, especially starting with our children, they will go for it every time.
Every time.
Every single time. If you give a child from the beginning of their life all reinforcement that tells them they can be anything and do anything, and that they are loved and that they are special. I mean, that is one of the keys, I think, to what we can do for the children of our families, our community, right? I mean, I think about it, you know, I grew up at a time where, you know, Aretha was singing "You Are Young, Gifted, and Black." And every signal we received told us that.
Right.
Yeah.
And, you know, we weren't particularly special, but everybody told us we were. Right. And we believed them.
But what we were talking about is representation and why it matters.
That's right.
Being able to see yourself as a heroic figure.
Yeah, right.
Everybody feels lonely. Everybody feels like things aren't going your way. And when you look around the way that society is being constructed, the way that it's just everything is so against you. No matter who you are, you're going to have to hit the same roadblocks in life.
As a black man, you know, it was about 2 weeks ago you released your plan for black men. And first, let me say thank you for doing it.
I loved it.
But it's based on work I've been doing for years, by the way.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
But a lot of times brothers don't feel seen.
Yeah, but understandably.
And so literally having a plan that says, black men, this is for you, was extremely important. What we're seeing is getting more brothers to actually understand what's in the plan. But you also talked about other things. And I mean, I read the plan. I think it was 9 pages.
So, for example, to your point, I also know history to understand why people feel the way they do right now. And it's based on fact. You look at World War II. Okay. The people who went to fight that war, who were predominantly men, went to go fight that war. They came back, and America called them the greatest generation. Because they did such an incredible job. And so many gave their lives for it. So the policy was, we should invest in the greatest generation. They've done so much for our country. And one of the things that we did as policy to create federal programs to help them, including giving an incredible infusion of resources into helping people buy homes, to become homeowners.
Right.
But of course, we still had, at that time, incredible racism within the institutions. Right. So in spite of a policy that was supposed to benefit everyone, which boosted a lot of people, our black servicemen did not benefit from that boost as much as others did. So you just look at these different moments in time, right? You look at redlining. I mean, it happened here in Philly. It happened all over the country, which is black people who were ready to buy homes in areas where they could then build the wealth, right, were not allowed to buy in those places. And today, black families are 40% less likely to own their homes than others, okay?
Right.
So part of my plan and policy is recognizing that, to give people a $25,000 down payment assistance if they're a first-time home buyer, which just helps people literally get their foot in the door. And then folks will save up. They'll do what they do to make the mortgage. Part of my plan is a $6,000 child tax credit for the first year of your child's life. Because as we know, the vast majority of our parents, young fathers and mothers, want to parent their children well, but don't always have the resources to do it. Part of my plan is about dealing with black men's health. I mean, we know the statistics. First of all, black people are 60% more likely to be diagnosed with diabetes. When we talk about our men, like twice as likely to die from things like colon cancer and prostate cancer.
I lost my wife last month to colon cancer.
I know you did.
So when you talk about colon cancer,
I know you did. And I'm so sorry.
I appreciate that. But the truth is,
I lost my mother to colon cancer.
You're so right. We have to utilize our platforms to make sure that people understand early screening, early detection. And for brothers, like we'll come in the barbershop, we'll talk about everything else, but we won't talk about healthcare.
Yeah.
We won't talk about those things that could mean life or death.
That's exactly right. And the quality of life, too.
Yes.
Right? I know and see and understand the dimensions of life that we are talking about when we talk about our men. And it's about home ownership. It's about being a business person. It's about having dreams. It's about having ambitions. It's about education. It's about health. And it's, yes, it is about the election, but it's more than that. Because part to the point that we've been talking about, and you talked about so beautifully, when people feel alone, it's very disempowering. Right? When you feel it's like you against the world, it's very disempowering. And I want people to know that they are not alone.
I tell people all the time, there's going to be a president, there's going to be members of Congress.
Right.
There are going to be governors, there's going to be members of the General Assembly, there are going to be mayors and city council. The question that we have to ask ourselves as black men, are we going to have a say in who those people are going to be?
That's exactly right.
And when you don't vote, those folks still get elected. You just don't get to decide.
That's exactly right. So I wrote with Cory Booker the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act when I was in the Senate. And there were a bunch of folks who did not want it to happen and worked against it. And we still need to pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, okay? But they worked against it. And then those are the same people who will quietly suggest, see, you shouldn't vote because nothing happens when you do. Because there are forces that also trying to obstruct the good work. And here's the thing, though. If you don't vote, then you're not deciding who's in the positions of power to make decisions like, do we pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act? You see the vicious cycle?
Right.
So you don't vote, and then you end up taking yourself out of the game. And we should never take ourselves out of the game.
There's a national spotlight every 4 years around the big ticket, the presidential election and everything like that. There's also very important to make sure that you're voting in your local elections also. Your judges, your state reps, your city council people, and also being engaged in that process so that you understand how all of these different functions work together.
Right. To get the word out, whether people vote for me or not, whether they vote or not. Well, although we want to encourage them to vote for me.
Everybody.
But let's get the word out so people also understand what they have a right to expect and demand. Because this is not about doing anybody a favor. It's literally the right thing to do. Period.
Well, you survived. You survived the barbershop.
I had no question about that. Were you worried?
I know. I mean, I knew you was going to do it.
I think you were worried.
No, I wasn't.
Were you all right?
You were Harris. You were Harris. That's how we built. Let's thank the Vice President for hanging out with us a little bit.
Thank you for letting me come into the barbershop. I know what a sacred space this is. I mean, it's so funny. I was going to say but this is where America's news gets told.
No, for sure.
Right? Like all the press were here. This is where America's news gets told.
All right, folks, that is it for us here in Mobile, Alabama. I'm about to pack things up. We'll be flying out at 6 a.m. to Michigan tomorrow. Governor Wes Moore is having a rally in Flint, Michigan, and we're going to try to get there in time to broadcast that for you. On Sunday, Vice President Kamala Harris will be on the campus of Michigan State University in Lansing, Michigan. We'll be there as well. And then Minnesota Governor Tim Walz will be holding a rally in Detroit on Monday. We'll be broadcasting that and doing our show from there as well. Then we all fly back Tuesday morning to Washington, D.C., where we'll be holding it down for our election night coverage in our Black Star Network studios there in D.C. We will have a camera and a reporter on the campus of Howard University doing live hits for us there as well. So a lot going on, folks. 4 days left. If you're able to vote early in your state, please go to the polls and absolutely vote. We are very clear. We are 100% down, 10 toes down with Vice President Kamala Harris and Governor Tim Walz. And so let's not have a squeaker, folks. Let's have a resounding victory for both of them. And so we're going to keep this thing, keep pushing information on social media, keep calling, keep talking, keep sharing, keep explaining to people. If you encounter somebody who is, and they tell you that they are, undecided, guess what? Have the conversation with them to talk about this election, because all of this is important. So we've been on the road. We appreciate all the hospitality. We thank the folks here at the second annual Port City Classic. Thank you so very much. And so do me a favor. Support the work that we do. And I keep telling y'all, Cash App, I don't know what the hell is going on with them. They changed their rules. It's impacted us greatly economically because people are supporting us with Cash App. But it's a problem now. And so do me a favor. You can contribute to us via PayPal, Venmo, and Zelle. So do me a favor. Send your check and money order, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. Of course, PayPal is R. Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. All y'all folks on YouTube, y'all been slow. Hit the damn like button, y'all. We should easily be over 1,000 likes. And so get it done before I sign off. Download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. Be sure to get a copy of my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds, available in bookstores nationwide. Ben Bella Books, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, Books A Million chapters. You can also get the audio version, that's right, on Audible. I am reading it there, so please do so. All right, YouTube, y'all hurry up, y'all. We 20 away from 1,000 likes, okay? We should easily be at 1,000 likes. Y'all taking too dadgum long. And so let's get to 1,000 likes by the time we roll all of our donors. Folks, that's it. I am going to get me something to eat and going to sleep because I got to be up at 4 a.m. to catch the 6 a.m. flight to Michigan. Folks, y'all be well. I shall see y'all tomorrow. Holla!